So we want to start off with number 1. And the general consensus, I'm looking around online with ESPN, a bunch of fantasy websites. General consensus is Lamar Jackson is the number 1 pick for quarterbacks. Do you agree with that? Yes or no?
I don't. Now, when you hear about someone that, when I say I don't agree with it, I mean, I'm talking about the 2019 MVP.
Hold up real quick. Pull your mic a little bit closer.
We're talking about the 2019 MVP. The top rushing quarterback last year. He was a namesake. He'll forever be a namesake within the NFL. And his name will be synonymous with QBs like Mike Vick, top rushing quarterbacks. This is a guy last year that averaged 27.7 points per game, 415 points total, and if he would have played that last game, he probably would have broke the record for the most fantasy points by a player in one season. But my consensus number 1 for me personally is Patrick Mahomes, and that's due to the fact of I like the security I get with Mahomes. I when you have a quarterback that's rushing as much as Lamar Jackson is, you're opening yourself up to injury concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look back in 2012 when RG3 was a rookie, you got
I don't know about his fantasy season, but that was one of the best rookie seasons of all time.
Yeah. And he had one of the best rookie seasons of all time, and he was a rushing quarterback, but his legs were really what led to his demise. But like Patrick Mahomes, he's a little bit, he can still use his legs, but he's a little less of a rusher than Lamar Jackson.
Definitely.
But he has that arm. He's in an offense in Kansas City where he's comfortable with. He sat a year behind Alex Smith and then became the starter, and we know what he did his rookie year or his second year. And I just feel that if you're going for safety, if you're going for, with a little bit less injury concern, you're going to go with Patrick Mahomes. He's my surefire number 1 pick. I feel really safe picking him number 1.
So I'm going to respectfully disagree because I love Mahomes. I got him as my 2. We basically flip-flopped our 1 and the 2. Yeah. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. If you're going to pick a quarterback early, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, I'm feeling Lamar just because, all right, so if you're going to make the argument about injury concerns, I think that's the only argument you can make against Lamar because I think his floor is still a top 5 quarterback if he's able to play all 15 games. So if you consider that, whenever you're drafting early, I think you want someone that's going to have a high floor. Like whenever Antonio Brown was the top receiver, you just drafted him no matter if you thought maybe Julio or Hopkins, one of these other guys were going to emerge ahead of him. You were drafting him because you knew you were getting top 5, but then at the same time, he had the potential to be the number 1 player.
Right.
And I feel the same way about Lamar Jackson. So I did a little thing where I ran some numbers myself. I have my own projections. So if Lamar, this is worst case scenario in my opinion.
Okay.
If Lamar has 3,000 passing yards, 26 passing touchdowns, which is 10 less than what it was last year. 900 rushing yards, that's about 300 yards less. And then 5 touchdowns, that's a couple touchdowns less on the ground than he had. If he has that season, which I would say is the floor for him, I would be completely shocked if he had that type of season. I expect maybe his numbers last year take maybe a little bit of a dip, but not too much. And then I don't think anyone would be surprised if he has a little upgrade in his numbers either.
Yeah.
Which would, if he had the same season or just a little bit of a dip, that is a bona fide number 1 player.
Yeah.
But that floor that I was talking about, 3,000, 26 touchdowns, 900 yards, and 5 touchdowns, that's
extraordinary.
324 points. That is a top 5 quarterback. Yeah. And like I said, that is I think what most would consider a bad season. That would be him not living up to expectations. Right. That's still a top 5 quarterback. So that's why I like Lamar, because whenever you compare him to Mahomes, if you're looking at upside, both of them had crazy good seasons. Mahomes' 50 touchdown year, Lamar's year last year. I think Lamar's is more replicable than Mahomes' 50 touchdown season. I just got that feeling that because Lamar, he does rush that amount, and that's a huge addition for quarterbacks where Mahomes doesn't do it as much.
Right.
He's going to be relying on his arm to get those 50 touchdowns and those yards again, which I don't know, dude. I don't know if they're going to maybe try to preserve him in some events and whatnot. Just he got that big contract too. I don't know. So I like Lamar. I like Lamar at 1.
You know, we saw what Mahomes did that one year. He had the 50 touchdown passes. He was the sure #1 pick and set the record for most fantasy points in a year by any player. But we saw some regression last year. You know, Mahomes was the 8th ranked quarterback amongst fantasy players in regards to points. And I think that, you know, we're going to see the same sort of thing from Lamar Jackson. I don't know if he's going to go from 1 to 8. I still think he's going to be, as you said, a top 5 quarterback at worst. But yeah, I mean, as far as that, it's just all about personal preference. And
it is definitely. I'm not going to, like, dude, if you saying you take Mahomes at 1, it's all like, wow, you're an idiot, dude.
Right.
Hell, yeah, it's not a bad choice. It's not a bad choice at all.
Right.
Because we looked at some of the ESPN rankings and some of these rankings online. Yeah. They have Jackson and Mahomes literally side by side in the rankings.
Some people
like in the second
2,
round.
Some rank them 1. It's just
exactly. So we have it the same way. If Lamar is off the board and you're really wanting to take a quarterback early, I say you take Mahomes at 2. I think that's a no-brainer. I think those two are head and shoulders above any of the other quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So do we want to go to 3? Do you have anything else to say about Lamar Mahomes?
I think you're gonna go. You know, like you said, you're gonna go. You can't go wrong with either. I mean, either one's a championship caliber quarterback. But yeah, I think that once we get into 3 to like 10, it really opens up. And I mean, I feel like you can put from 3 to maybe 7. I mean, you can put any of those guys at 3. I mean, it's just, as I said with Lamar and them, it's all about personal preference. But me personally, the way standard leagues and ESPN work, I usually like to wait till the end of drafts to pick a quarterback. I think that the value that you can get in rounds 10 to 13 or maybe 10 to 14 even it can benefit you. I think that, the production you're going to get from these quarterbacks can be, similar if not better with quarterbacks in that round. And
you'll see as we go through. We'll probably mention with some of these quarterbacks, like, not surprised if he ends up being a top 3 or top 5 quarterback.
Absolutely.
And you could say the same thing with Lamar and Mahomes. It's just that you feel like that's more of a lock than maybe some of the other guys.
Right, exactly.
And they have potentially a little bit more upside. That's why they're the top 2 guys. But man, with quarterbacks concerned, just compared to the rest of like running backs and receivers, this is so much more based off personal preference and finding value. I'm sure we'll get to that more and more as we talk along with this. But then